Welcome to Live Arts 30 and 30, a season-by-season history of live arts. Please welcome tonight's moderator, Interim Artistic Director, Jeremy Duncan Pape.
Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jeremy. And thank you for spending time with us on Mother's Day. I'm really lucky. I think I have three mothers watching tonight. My grandmother, my mom. Thank you both for putting up with me over the years. And Trisha, thank you for putting up with me and for making such an awesome baby. I love you guys. And for all the mothers out there, thank you for being who you are. And so tonight we're talking about the 99-2000 season. I'll be joined in a little bit by Teresa, Dowell-Vest, and Khadijah Williams, and maybe somebody else. We'll see. It looks like we might have had a no-show tonight, but we'll get by. Before we get to that, our community partner tonight is, looks like Christina Ramsey will be joining us this evening as well. Awesome, really excited for that. And tonight our community shout out is Junction. Junction is one of our partners. They help us with our cocktails and occasionally food for events, and they're really wonderful, and they're still doing delivery and takeout. So if you're interested and able, get on down there and get some really good food. So now on to the main event. We are joined by the wonderful Teresa Dowell-Vest. Hey, Teresa, I think you might be muted.
There we go. Hey.
Thank you for joining us.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
How are you tonight?
I'm well. It's Mother's Day. You know, we're celebrating all the mamas out in the world. And, what a time to be alive. The quarantine and pandemic has us all kind of hunkered down right now and feeling, all sorts of emotions. And but at the same time, I think it might be a good time to, be a bit more introspective, maybe get some writing done if you can muster it or not, watch some Netflix or, participate in 30 for 30.
So, yeah. Find a way to be together even if we're apart.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I know how busy you are. So for those who don't know, could you just let us know, who are you? How'd you get involved with live arts? What got you in the door?
Sure. Well, first of all, Charlottesville is my hometown. It's where I was born and raised. And I left Charlottesville to go to grad school in California. So when I came back east, I was just looking for something. A job, first of all, but once I found that at UVA, I was at Charlottesville High School. People told me about this theater that I should check out if I wanted to see something, good or different or edgy. And I went to see Once on This Island. That was my introduction to live arts. And I sat in the audience, and I'd seen a production of it in LA. A community theater in LA had done it, and I was just completely blown away by what was happening in Charlottesville. So I met John, and John Gibson, gave me the space, the experimental space to do my one-woman show, Counting Stars and Smelling Roses. And that, I think, really allowed me to meet more people at Live Arts and find my legs there and just kind of network and figure out, what avenues I needed to kind of pursue to become more involved. And was given the opportunity to direct 7 Guitars, which, we saw last night. And the change, the metamorphosis began. And I everything that I've done since, any success that I've had since, Live Arts definitely has its fingerprints on it. So much so that when I went back to LA in 2002, I ended up working with a theater called the Morgan Wixon Theater. And the Morgan Wixon is Live Arts West, basically. I mean, everything that I thought I would miss, I found in that West Coast home. And the sensibility was very similar. The concept and mission of forging community through theater, building up the youth with youth programs. And I found a surrogate home in them. And so again, I attribute knowing what to look for by working at Live Arts.
That's wonderful. Thank you. So Seven Guitars was this preceding season, and this season, and we're gonna spend some time talking about Vinegar Hill. But Vinegar Hill was you wrote and was your, I think you called it your special baby.
Yeah.
An old friend.
Old friend, special baby, wife for a while. I mean, we went through a tumultuous relationship and in all its many phases. If I have a discussion about Vinegar Hill, it really has to start with Seven Guitars. Because, the aesthetics of Seven Guitars, John Gibson's set design, for instance, the costume design, the actors themselves, it's almost a precursor to life in Vinegar Hill. When you think about the Hill District in Pittsburgh, pre-urban renewal, before homes that were built by and lived in by Black folks in the 1940s and 50s into the 60s, Seven Guitars was a nice introduction into what we were going to explore with Vinegar Hill in terms of theater. But it was also a great gateway for a lot of Black people who live in Charlottesville to finally come to Live Arts. And I say finally come to Live Arts. Look, when we look at the previous seasons that we've explored and celebrated before, there wasn't a whole lot of programming that, made some of the people who are from Charlottesville, Black folk who had an interest in theater and enjoyed coming to see, some of the plays at Live Arts. But where was the narrative that shared their voice? And so Seven Guitars, started that conversation. And I think it was such a smart direction to go in terms of the programming committee, John and Fran and that whole collective to go, we're going to do Vinegar Hill. And this is the approach John came to me with. We're doing Vinegar Hill, but it would be wrong of us to do Vinegar Hill if we've not done this programming before. And it's not lost on me that the narrative will then become, well, here come Live Arts into our community trying to get our stories. And, they've never done a Black play before. And I say, okay, so then what stops Seven Guitars from being that? He goes, okay, well, that's for you to figure out now. And I was like, you know what? Actually, that's the best answer because I knew who to ask. I knew to go to my grandmother's restaurant, Dottie's Cafe, and I knew to go to, various churches, and I knew to ask my family and my friends, not only what's the narrative regarding Vinegar Hill, but what would you want to see in Seven Guitars? And so those two shows really belong to each other. I mean, even the 10 tons of dirt that John bought, and, we used 5 tons of it. I don't know where the other 5 went. Somebody's yard has a nice little, dirt patch or something, but all of that was about digging your hands into the soil and walking on a set, on a stage that felt much more organic. And it was a practice run, if you will. And so he said, get started on the research for Vinegar Hill while you're working on Seven Guitars. Figure out what's at the heart of Vinegar Hill and tap into August Wilson. Find out, what would August do to help you get to the heart of a story that belongs to a community. And that's what August Wilson, with his, the American Cycle plays, a play for every decade in the 20th century, all of those plays were about community. And so, none of that was lost on me and the team at Live Arts in bringing it to our theater. Y'all be prepared for long-winded answers for no good reason.
Plenty of good reason. Well, you want to look at some pictures?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Excellent. So, and of course, the most important part about this season was this was the first season that I started volunteering at Live Arts.
Oh, okay. It a great time to walk in the door for the first time. As I said before, Once on This Island was my first show. How I Learned to Drive was the second production. I sat in the house and just really invested in being an audience member and taking in the aesthetics. And talk about powerhouse performances. I remember reading How I Learned to Drive in grad school. It was, it was like fresh off the presses. Paula Vogel's work at that time was just dangerous. You just didn't know what corner you were going to turn when you were turning the pages. And How I Learned to Drive, just, this haunting story. This picture right here, come on, it depicts basically the icy chill you feel when you watch, when you read the story, but certainly these performances. Everyone came through, and I think I sat with my knees and my elbows, kind of like this the whole time, watching everyone give these devastating and stellar performances. Look at Kay showing out. You better show out, Kay Ferguson, everybody. Yeah, these are amazing. Luke, Luke, man, high comedy, stylized. I mean, and here's the thing about live arts, in general, you can do anything. There was someone there who can help a cast and crew. So look at that. You better rock that wig, honey. There was someone there who could bring you through any genre, any style of performance. It was a master class of theater, in a sense, from top to bottom. Working with Maggie on sets, working with Lenny Sorensen in costumes, of course, John, and a variety of folks with set design. There was no shortage of talent and brilliance at this place. And your body was the instrument of the Lord. People picking you up and swinging you around and telling stories. You were simply an instrument of the work, and you loved it. You loved it. I know tomorrow night, one of the shows you'll focus on is Venus. And that was a conversation I had with John. I just said, use me. And that came out of just absolute trust. And you can see in this picture here, you don't have people holding you upside down and swinging you about and doing all sorts of things and putting you on staircases that are on casters. Y'all love a staircase on casters. Without trust. And that trust comes from the fact that you care about the story, you care about each other, and you work hard to protect all of that. Come on now. The Winter's Tale. Foolery. Yeah. Foolery. Just an extraordinary troupe who understood how to take care of classic works, especially Shakespeare plays, and give them a twist, an edge, a snap, a pull. Watching Thad and Sean and Kara Burke and all, that troupe, not only make Shakespeare accessible, but made it fun. And they went after the more obscure plays first. That was one of my memories of them, doing some of the shows, and you're like, did y'all write that and say it, but just a stellar group of people who, when I think about Hamilton on Broadway, in the last 5-7 years that it's kind of taken over things, that aesthetic is how I envision Foolery is with Shakespeare. That new, fresh, dynamic, it makes it all brand new somehow. And The Winter's Tale was no different. I think that might have been the second time I'd seen Clinton in a show. I want to say my memory serves that he was in Once on This Island, but I'd seen him around.
Yeah.
And well, no, because he was in Seven Guitars.
He was in Seven Guitars, yeah.
Yeah. But my point though is I hadn't really worked with him a whole lot before we got to Seven Guitars, and I didn't realize how versatile he is. So by the time you get to The Winter's Tale, that man could do anything. He could absolutely do anything. So kudos to my guy Clinton. Yeah. Okay. The Cripple of Inishmin Again, another one of those plays I read in grad school, and I had seen a production of it in LA. There was a company that did that in rep with, it doesn't matter. I can't think of it now. But I remember thinking, oh, I've seen the best of Irish storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen all I need to see. This is amazing. I'm hooked. Give me more. And so then when Bill Ruff directed this production, at the time in Charlottesville, there was this kind of renaissance, if you will, of Irish American narratives.
Mm-hmm.
So this play, I want to say Paul Wagner had produced a documentary with the Virginia Foundation for the Humanities. There was another set of programming with the VFH around the Irish community in Charlottesville in particular. And as it would be, there was such a huge connection to the Irish community in Vinegar Hill that Bill's work helped me kind of tap into another community that became an integral part of the research and writing. Of course, this show, I think the very next show might have been Vinegar Hill, but all of this kind of tied together so that the audience kind of felt like they were still seeing this through line, this thread of Charlottesville history through these different narratives, different cultures, different things like that. There's Miss Miller, Kristen Miller. Let me tell you about a talented woman there. We were in WIT together. And by that point, I was already a fan of hers because she's just this beautiful, just kind of statuesque person who has this grace about herself. She's also a cuckoo nut. She great sense of humor. And one day we were in rehearsals for WIT, and she was doodling on a piece of legal pad paper. It was just this little something that she was drawing, and I looked over and I was like, "What you got going on over there?" She's like, just it's just a picture of a sun and a moon, a celestial type of." And it was just a doodle. Like we were just sitting in the house watching Zuby do some work in the scene, and I said, "It was amazing. I want to get this as a tattoo." And 2 weeks later, I went and got it as a tattoo. Clearly, I still have it. It's a tattoo. So I get to say that Kristen is with me everywhere I go for the rest of my life, because that doodle was beautiful, but it's just a depiction of an amazing person and a great friend who is just wonderfully talented. Yeah, sweet face. Bless his head. He got an egg on his head.
Yeah, she had a good time doing that to me.
That is you. The angle was off. I couldn't make it out. You wore an egg on your head. You got an egg on your head. Oh, that is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. The other show in rep with this, it was the House of Bernardo Alba, but they were taking Irish narratives and Spanish narratives, and that flashback, that was random thought number 1020.
Yeah.
Oh, the memories are flooding back.
Yeah. Now they get brought in a ringer. We were talking about UVA. They played, Cripple Billy was played by a kid from UVA.
Yeah. And that was a great thing too about live arts in general. Candide. Yeah. I missed Candide. I didn't get a chance to see any of this production, but I remember I remember the set being built. I remember all that paper. I remember all that. But I'd been cast in a show in New York at the Harlem Theater Company at the same time. And so I was commuting by Amtrak train every Wednesday night, and then would come back on Sunday. And so I would miss the weekend. I missed this. Yeah, it was clear that everyone had an amazing time during this show. See, that the staircase platform thing is probably on wheels. It probably moved around because y'all love to do that. Had me on one of those things during Venus, swinging me around. Like, I loved it. But yeah, I missed this particular show. But I was saying about live arts and UVA, that's a wonderful relationship. And I remember that being somewhat the case when I was there, but certainly more so over the years, in that UVA students have this amazing program there, right? Gwen West is doing, just God's work on that campus, Bill Chapel, before he left. And then, Heritage Rep, if you got in, you had that to, also available to you. But Live Arts served as like this off Broadway type experience where, there was this away from the classroom, away from campus, or from grounds, away from all of that, where they could really sink their teeth into rich storytelling, working with any of the people at Live Arts. Certainly had a place anywhere else in the country. But why would you want to be anywhere else when you had this great playground, this great sandbox that was nearby to an amazing resource that was UVA? I spent countless hours in Clemens and in Alderman libraries, researching Vinegar Hill, getting ready for that. And well, here we are. And so, yeah, the research for this show was, about 1.5 years, 2 years. And, there's not enough time. There's simply not enough time to talk about all the things that, all the jewels, all the gems that were unveiled during that process. As you can see here, this set was, this deconstructed, fragmented experience that really mirrored the experience of being moved out of your home, being watching from the distance as bulldozers overrun your house. And a lot of the materials were actually, recovered materials from various, junkyards and landfills and different companies that had just random bricks and stuff. And you're like, oh, where'd this come from? This has been here for years. So we were using materials that were, we didn't go to Lowe's or Home Depot to get our material. We really pulled what we could from the community and tried to make this experience as organic as possible. And that rake that the actors were standing on, that angle, you constantly felt like you were about to fall off, like you were sliding down a slope that you may never recover from. And that really was what Vinegar Hill felt like. From the people that I talked to, that I interviewed, I spent countless hours with so many people from the city, elders who shared their time with me, but no one gave me more time and more grace than Rebecca McGinnis. And when I tell you, Mother McGinnis, there she is. So that lady, she passed away 1 month before the show opened. I think the show opened May 5th. She passed away April 4th. And she was 106 years old at the time. And sharp, hadn't lost anything, 106 years old. She was 6 at the year 1900 and could remember the entire 20th century. And I still have these tapes, the micro cassette tapes, where I recorded her stories. And there was no question. I didn't have a question. I didn't ask. I didn't prompt her. There was nothing. That's when you just get out of the way. You shut your mouth, get out of the way, and let the 106-year-old woman tell you about the 20th century. Now, granted, all I really needed was this pocket of time. But what she gave me was this context that went, decades before the time period we were talking about. So there was this depth that I think came as a result of spending that time with her. And I remember the first couple meetings I had with her, and she didn't know what was going on. I know I reached out to her, I talked to her family. I said, we're doing this thing. Can I please come and interview you? And I'll probably spend some time. Oh, yeah, okay. Come on by the house. And then it grew into this just come on by the house. It wasn't for Live Arts. It wasn't for Charlottesville. It wasn't even for Vinegar Hill. It was just company. And I was praying that she could see it, and then she passed a month before we opened, and she saw it. She saw it. She saw it every day of her life. She didn't need our little play. She saw it every day of her life, but I know she was rooting for us, right? She was rooting for us to tell the truth, tell the story of Live Arts, of Vinegar Hill, through Live Arts. And she knew that we were doing good work and we were doing necessary work for our town, right? And I think about August a couple years ago, and I look at my city from Houston. I'm sitting in Houston and I'm watching the news. And, ever since then, every time I hear someone say Charlottesville, reference Charlottesville, it comes with this thing, this taste of this, this battle. And and my wife will tell you, every time I hear a news person say on CNN or MSNBC, I don't really watch Fox News, you know me, I ain't gonna be consistent. But even on the channels that I do watch, when they say Charlottesville and they reference, those images in that event, I see my town, but I don't see my town. And I think of what time Rebecca McGinnis gave me and the work that we did at Live Arts and the people of my city. I think of a bigger place. I think of a better place. At the same time, I'm so proud of my city. I'm so proud of the people there because folks showed up for each other and continued to care for each other. And I think Live Arts is a microcosm of that humanity, of that grace. Yeah, I feel like my chest is about to blow up right now because it's my town, that's my city. And Rebecca McGinnis, she's always with us. Mm. So then we get to talk about a cuckoo comedy called The Chemistry of Change. And let me tell you something. We needed this levity. We needed to come out of because we had hard conversations with Vinegar Hill. We had audience members that were sitting in a room like this, waiting to be told what they already knew. And then the audience came back. People came back for this next show because they needed the lift. They needed the shift in storytelling, and that stories can show up in so many different ways and forms. And if that is Cindy Burke standing there grimacing back at me, Cindy Burke, let me tell you all about Cindy Burke, because I know y'all know. First of all, you cannot just call her Cindy or Cynthia or anything. You have to say Cindy Burke. You have to say her whole name, her whole government name. And this woman is the professional of all professionals. Look at her. You better stand and pose and do a face. I knew watching The Chemistry of Change, working with her on The Women. I was dealing with somebody who was up there with Carol Burnett, Lucille Ball, Mary Tyler Moore. I mean, I'm watching someone who's giving us the business. She did what she needed to do every night, every day, whatever. And Chemistry of Change was no different. Look at that woman, Joy. Mm-hmm. And these people are beautiful. And look at that set. That green chair back there, I had conversations with people because Big Mama and them, my great grandmother, her name was Magnolia Harris, but we called her Big Mama. She had that chair. That's what all the sets gave you, though. All the aesthetics gave you that sort of that authenticity that you've been here before. You know something about this. But Cindy Burke, I'm going to jump forward to The Women right quick because that woman is a professional. We pranked her every night. We tried to get her. There were 18 women in that cast, and people were like, oh, that show's going to fall apart because all those women, y'all probably going to hate each other. It was a party every day. And there was a set piece on set that had a drawer in it. And every night she had blocking where she had to go and there was a prop in it that she needed to get every night. Let me tell you about the professional that is Cindy Burke. She would open that drawer, and we got to the point where we would put something in it every night. And at first it started off innocent. It was like a picture or a little trinket of some sort, just see if we can get a rise out of her. And then eventually it just became awful. We put all sorts of, I hope ain't no children watching. We do things in that drawer. We put stuff in there and and all of us are sitting in the back, on stage, but sitting there and our shoulders, that church laugh you do when your shoulders are bouncing and you just trying not to break, but so much. And Cindy never, she would turn back and look at us. She would give us that look like, y'all some unprofessional children. But we loved it. And she never peeked. Not once did she go and say, what these, she never peeked. And it was just such great fun. And every show, whether it's Chemistry of Change or whatever the show Cindy was in, just an amazing performer. Years later, she got me too, because I was part of that. I was heavy in that pranking thing. So towards the end of the run of the women, she said, TDV, I'm going to get you. And I'm going to get you when you least expect it. You won't see it coming. You won't know what's happening. And I was like, oh, okay. She sounded like the mob. Like, what's she going to do? What's Cindy Burke going to do? I had left Charlottesville. I'd moved to LA. Years have gone by. I'm not even thinking about Cindy Burke. Cindy Burke ain't somebody I think about on a regular basis at that point. I love her, just not a part of my day. I moved into a new apartment and I'm unpacking books and boxes and different things. And this picture drops out from the women. And she had written on it, when you least expect it, I will come for you. And sure enough, it's this picture of her just kind of gawking, like doing this old Hollywood thing. And she inscribed this message on there and she got me. And I could not stop laughing. And I still have the photo. I should have taken the time to find it before this call, but I didn't know I was going to go down this path. But if I stumble across it next week, Cindy Burke will have continued to get me. So that's the community that came out of live arts. That's the community that came out of live arts.
Yeah, that's still here. Cindy's still around.
Looking fabulous with that silver hair. I've seen. Yeah, y'all are doing amazing stuff.
So I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier about how the context of the sort of the Irish narrative that had been happening at around this time, that sort of exploration of the past, and then also the context that Rebecca McGinnis gave you. I was just wondering, did that help shape what ultimately became Vinegar Hill? Because it is that sort of, there's that staggered timeline over 150 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I first began writing Vinegar Hill, it wasn't an exclusively Black narrative. I think I was most interested in the people that I knew, the people who reared me. My grandmother worked at UVA as a housekeeper at one of the hospitals there on grounds, as did my great-grandmother, and many of them worked in Vinegar Hill. My paternal grandmother's business and where she lived, her house is still at 10th and Page now, but she at some point was in the Vinegar Hill. So I had this desire to kind of keep it as, our story. But then, there was all this Irish programming, and then I found a book called How the Irish Became Black. No, How the Irish Became White. That's what it was called. How the Irish Became White. And it looked at this time period where there were all these, during the mid-1800s, 1850s, there were all these Irish immigrants moving to the United States, having an incredibly rough time with English Protestant landowners who were overcharging these people and forcing them to grow crops and give them the crops of wheat and, oats and all sorts of things that were benefiting the English, and leaving them with the potatoes that then had, fungus and rotting, and they had nothing. So the Irish come to the States to find a better life. And the path that group had mirrored or went parallel with enslaved humans who wanted to be free. And so there was this kindred experience that I wanted to explore, because those kindred experiences not only found themselves in Charlottesville, but kind of ran into each other in Charlottesville. Those lines essentially met in Charlottesville. And in some cases they were allies and they helped each other. And but then there was a moment when the Civil War is about to break out, and the need for Confederate soldiers are in place. And suddenly these Irish immigrants who were working with Black people, living in Black communities, or shared communities, I should say, were given a choice. Hey, if you fight with the Confederates, the Confederate Army, we can guarantee a better life, a different life, one where, you know, Irish need not apply, or, you know, why risk valuable slaves on the railroads working with dynamite when you can risk an Irishman that, you know, has no value. And so, you know, suddenly their station in life could be improved if they align themselves with the Confederate Army. Not necessarily aligning themselves with slavery, because they had anti-slavery laws that went back years, decades, generations. But I found all of that to be interesting because they had this particular struggle, this conflict that, I mean, you know, how do you make a decision like that? How do you decide, okay, well, I can continue to be denigrated and treated worse than slaves? If you could imagine that, I can't imagine anything being worse than the way Black people have been treated in this country. But then when you add that to that mix, I wanted to explore that even more. And then now, where does that animosity between those two communities come from? And you start to pull back some of that history, and you go, you got two people at the bottom trying to find a way up and out. And it just became a part of that narrative. It became a part of what did shape Charlottesville, and Vinegar Hill in particular. Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing the lengths people go to when they're given the opportunity to fit in, if that's what they need.
Look, you know, we can certainly sit here and say, well, if I was there back that time, I wouldn't have made this decision. I mean, I hear young Black people say, well, if I had been around back that time, I couldn't have been a slave. You would have been a slave. You'd have been picking cotton and tobacco like everybody else. And if you were confronted with the opportunity to lift your station in life when you have nothing, you've come from nothing, you come from a country where, or land where, you know, your food option is dirt and grass, and even that's not even safe anymore. And so you try to seek out something. I'm not caping for any particular group of people. I'm just saying, you know, it's hard to say what you might do to improve your life. And that goes for everyone. It goes for everyone.
Context.
Yeah, right. Say it again. That's it.
Well, so in a second, we're going to be joined. Excuse me. In a second, we're going to be
see me reaching for water.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's theater that's what it is. We're storytellers by nature, right? We've been sitting around campfires from the dawn of time, and the best stories are the ones that are somehow a part of you. You can't, you know, what is the first rule of writing? Talk about things you know, write from what you know. But that comes with, there's an expense to that. There's an emotional expense. There's a debt that you have to pay for the pain that was endured before you, so that you can tell that story. We all know it. And live arts, I think, coming back to live arts, I think what live arts, probably more so than any other place I've worked, whether it's a school or other theaters, and I will include the Morgan Wixon in this, because the Morgan Wixon gave me such great opportunities. I was nominated for an NAACP award doing work there. But it was all the lessons I learned here. You know, you can't tell stories. You can't work in theater on the periphery. You can't just design a set, stand on that set and go, I'm doing a play. Everything means something. The writer creates a universe. A director shapes that universe and brings it to life and makes it third dimensional with living, breathing humans who then bring their own stuff as performers, as designers, as audience members. And there's a debt. That price you pay is you know, standing at your back are the mothers and fathers who either A, allowed you to be in that space, or B, help, you know, just kind of shape the context of the world that you live in, so that those stories can be deeper and richer. You know, when I think about Venus, I know Venus is going on the slate for tomorrow, and I know Mickey is going to, you know, talk about it, but I had to go to Virginia Beach when I was working on that show because I couldn't figure it out. My ego allowed me to walk up to John Gibson and say, yeah, I'll be naked on stage. I'll do whatever you want. You know, it'll be flashy and interesting. Woo, people gonna love me. I didn't say all that. That's what my thinking was though, right? That this is gonna be interesting and dynamic. And then when we started rehearsals, I couldn't get through because Sergeant Bartman, Sarah Bartman, wouldn't allow me to do it. There was a debt. There was a price I had to pay. I could not just stand on stage and say, I am the Venus Hottentot. I had to, so I got in my car, drove to Virginia Beach. And I got a hotel room and I opened up it was cold. Nobody was there. And I opened up the sliding doors so I could see the ocean. And I just laid on the floor all night and listened to the water. And I kept thinking that if I laid my body from this coast in Virginia all the way down, and if I can lay it down and land on the west coast of Africa, I will have made a journey. I would have made a journey that my ancestors made. And I don't know anything about that. And that told me I knew nothing about Sarah Bartman. I knew nothing of her pain. I knew nothing of her journey. I knew nothing of the triumph or the shame that she felt for being in a Black body. And I learned the debt. I spent the time learning what I owed her to tell her story. I spent the time learning what I owed Charlottesville to tell the story of Vinegar Hill, to tell the story of the Irish and the Black of Vinegar Hill, to tell the story of the white folks who insisted on taking that land away. I needed to learn that story too. And if you're taking on the responsibility of being an artist and being in theater, the debt you pay is the research and the insistence on being truthful and honest. And I learned that from Live Arts. I learned that at Live Arts. Fran Smith, that woman will give you a master class in telling the truth, because she'll just look at you. You know, Fran has looked at you before like some surface shit right now. So so how's it going? That's what she'll do. She'll come, so how's it going?
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? And you get that and you go, oh, she already know. I don't even have to answer this question. Cindy, I see you, Cindy. Cindy over there cutting up. Yeah. You've opened this door. You've opened this gate, y'all. It's all coming now. What's next? Tell me what you want.
Well, I have one other question for you before we move on a little bit further. But so both of these two shows are dealing with real people, and we've touched on the need to honor those who've come before, and we've said in this space before, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're lucky enough to share space with those giants still sometimes, like Fran and John. How is it different in your experience and just for you as a theater maker when you're dealing with real people's stories as opposed to something that is maybe cut from whole cloth?
Sure. The example I will give you is the work of Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler's work, she's like, of sci-fi writers, no other Black woman has done more for Black horror, Black sci-fi than Octavia Butler. And you read her work and you go, where on planet Earth did this happen? And she had this wild imagination. And in reading her work, I go, I still recognize somebody in it. I still recognize something familiar in it. And I think that's what makes like all these superhero movies work, or anything that's cut, that's crafted originally like 100% from the imagination. It really isn't. Like, it really still has a connection to someone they know, a hero that reminded them of, of someone who did things that felt bigger than life. I could make a Black superhero movie right now and I would go, between my grandma and Barack Obama, I know I'm still drawing from real living, breathing people. It's how, as a director, when I work with people, I work with students who struggle with that, right? Have a hard time you have a student who will get a piece of material where they play, because I do more in film these days in theater, and they're preparing themselves to get a walk-on role on Law and Order SVU or something, and they have to play someone who's a rapist, and that's not their temperament, that's not their history, that's not their that's just not who. I mean, who would admit that? Like, who would be like, but I've done a thing before, so I can pull from that. No one would admit that, right? And so you have to then somehow find.
I think we might have lost you, Teresa.
There was a show at Live Arts where there was a person who was less than good. They were, I can't remember what show it was, and I said, you just can't judge it. It was Clinton. It was during Seven Guitars, and he couldn't bring himself to be the violent person Headley ended up being. And I said, you can't judge it. You got to find where it is in you, or who you know, or what you can draw from. So going back to the original question, even though when you're dealing with real people in your writing or in your directing or your acting, don't assume that that's somehow easier because you have a template or source material you can go to. Even if it's something that's so far removed from you, I'm willing to bet the guy who played Freddy Krueger needed to find something real to grab onto. And so, yeah, you still have to find it. You still have to find that accessibility.
Excellent. Thank you. Speaking of masterclass, what do you say? You want to bring in Christina and Khadijah?
Let's do it.
Excellent. So we're gonna read a small excerpt from Vinegar Hill. Khadijah Williams is going to be reading Hope. Christina Ramsey will be reading the chorus, and Teresa will be reading character of Nia. Teresa, do you want to set the scene at all for us before we get started?
Sure. This is second scene of the second act, and by this point, what we have explored in this play is the setting up of the two threads, or three threads, if you will, what the 1860s looked like in Charlottesville as the Irish and Nia's ancestors, her great-great-great-grandfather Daniel was contemplating as a white Irishman being offered an opportunity to join the Confederate Army. And then 100 years later, the 1960s, where her grandfather, Daniel, both of her grandfathers were named Daniel, but her grandfather from the 60s was nicknamed Shine because he was a shoe shineman at UVA. And so the 1960s is the confrontation leading up to the demolition of Vinegar Hill. And so by this point, Nia has been shown all this history through these apparitions, if you will, of her ancestral past. Some of these people she knew, like the character of Hope was written to be a child, but it's actually her mother. But at an age where we could see what burden Hope endured as she attended a newly desegregated school. Hope, being a child of 8-9 years old, endured massive resistance when Governor Lindsey Almond refused to allow the Virginia schools to be integrated. So I wrote that character to be 8 so that you could get that context along with the context of all the other political issues that were happening at Vinegar Hill, in Charlottesville in general at that time. So what the scene does is allow Nia for the first time to viscerally stand in her mother's shoes as she's being shown the truth, the final truth about how Vinegar Hill became a pile of rubble.
Got it. Well, so this is a small excerpt from Vinegar Hill by Teresa Dowell-Vest.
Is this the truth you are looking for? Are you getting the answers you wanted to hear? Or are you getting the answers you needed to hear? You do realize there are different types of truth, and depending on who's telling the truth and what they see as the truth and what they need to be as the truth. It's all a bunch of lies. One man's truth is another man's lie. Close your eyes.
What? I can't close my eyes, Mama. This is how I work. I'm a photographer. I can't take pictures if I don't see.
Nia, close your eyes.
But Mama,
Don't but Mommy.
Oh, I can't even take this. I mean, you're a child, 8 years old.
Close your eyes and your mouth.
Mama, I'm not.
Close them.
Shoot.
Now, widen your lens and see farther than you've seen. Stretch. Look. Feel. Look.
Are you showing me the truth?
About yourself. I'm showing you to you. And when you get the truth, you won't need that camera to record yourself, to remind you of who you are. You will know.
Oh, please.
The truth.
It's a slum.
It's my home.
The truth.
If we tear it down, and we will, because we have the power to do so, we will revitalize the downtown area.
If you tear it down, and you will, because you have the power to do so, we will be moved into project communities and made to believe that this was done for the better of us, like we've been taken care of.
That's right. We will rebuild the downtown area, beginning with Vinegar Hill, and create a better environment for all of us.
The truth.
That land sat barren, empty, lifeless for 22 years, and the best the city could do was put up a hotel we don't need, don't use, can't afford, and don't want.
We didn't put it there.
Yeah, but you didn't do anything to not put it there.
The truth.
We created jobs for you.
We have jobs. Like, we had businesses. We owned our own businesses.
My God, people, you had live animals living in your backyards. This is the city.
Oh, but white folk can breed horses and whatnot. We can't have animals. We can't raise our own animals.
We are going to provide you with better homes.
Lady, we have homes. We have trees. You messing with our lives. We have our history here. We have our souls here. You can keep your jobs and your project.
We voted to remove the slums. Don't you see?
But you didn't remove the slums. You picked up Vinegar Hill's poverty and you moved it down the street. You didn't take its richness. You didn't see the investment these Black people offered their community, nor did you regard it enough to send the investment along. No, you open your eyes, telling me open my eyes. I said you open your eyes.
What are you talking about? You weren't even there.
But I'm the product of it. There. Where is there? Charlottesville, DC, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, Detroit, New Orleans. There is everywhere in this country, everywhere in America. I was there because it's still here. It's everywhere. 1964, Black people were still playing catch up. These white folks who decided to move Blacks out of their home for their own gain, so that their precious downtown don't have slums. What did you expect people to have in 1964? 100 years prior, many of these people were slaves. What did you expect them to have? The big house? They had more than the houses, baby. They did, whether it was falling down around them or not. They had more than the house you saw. They had their dignity, but you didn't see that. You didn't see that. See, we as a people built ourselves up from scratch. And you didn't see that, did you? No, all you saw were that the Black kids were going to school with the white kids. You didn't want that. You saw that the Black businesses were going to uplift their businesses and take businesses from the white businesses, but you didn't want that. Right? All you saw was how you wanted to connect the university with downtown and squeeze us out. And none of this was done for my benefit. None of this was done for a person living in West Haven, a hotel we can't sleep in, a restaurant we can't afford to eat in. None of this was for us. The effects of destroying Vinegar Hill, building a project project housing, orchestrating a mass movement of a community instead of investing in those people and expanding on what they created for themselves. The effect of all that still lives with us today. Still lives with us today. Today. And all you saw was the money that it would cost the city to help destroy us, as opposed to the investment in building us up. That's all you saw.
Do you see, Nia?
Yeah, Mama, I see.
That a girl.
We thought we were helping.
Helping who? Do you even realize who you named West Haven after? John West. The man owned property in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Fluvanna County. Damn near 1,000 acres of the Blue Ridge Mountains. The man was a barber, worked with his hands.
Yeah.
Hell, he was born a slave.
Yeah.
Worked to his death and lived to be one of the richest Negroes this town had ever seen.
Yeah.
I bet that nigga rolling over in his grave to know y'all named the project after him. He would be overjoyed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, ladies. My God, y'all just want to wreck my emotions today. We just gonna do that. No, this is filling me up. I'm feeling juices I ain't felt in a minute, and it's all good. Khadijah, Kristen, y'all are just blessings. Christina, sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Khadijah, yes.
You're
Y'all
fine.
Y'all did a great job. Blessings.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, all three of you. So before we sign off, Teresa, you got anything else for us?
We did a lot of good at Live Arts. I had a great time. It felt like, when I reflect back on it, it feels like I was there for this longer period of time. And y'all keep saying 30 years. I don't know what y'all talking about. Y'all doing that new core math. I don't know what y'all talking about 30 years. That seems like it's like just yesterday. I was playing in that sandbox, and I have memories that will serve me 17,000 lifetimes over. I think aside from messing with Cindy Burke, pranking her on a regular basis, I think one of my favorite memories from Live Arts is being painted head to toe in silver paint for a gala.
Oh my gosh.
And brought in on a forklift. And I thought, who lives like this? This is awesome. Those are the experiences. Those are the stories that they will always have legs. And I owe all of that to Live Arts. And I appreciate you, and I love you, and I celebrate you. And just congratulations on journeying on. I heard Will say the other night, we're into the thousands of people whose lives this organization has touched, and that just doesn't happen. Something makes that happen. Mm-hmm. Community, forging community makes that happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and we're going to keep on doing it in any way we can. So I think that's it for tonight, friends. Thank you so much for spending part of your Mother's Day with us. And for those of you watching at home, tomorrow night we'll be talking about the 2000 and 2001 season. And first name Miller, Suzanne, will be interviewing Mickey Litz about that year. So hope to see you soon. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much.